All right, we have made it to the big 8-0. It is March 21st. The sun is shining, excuse me. On today's episode of Three Things with Ian, we will be discussing stocks. I will give you some recommendations with the caveat I'm not a financial advisor, but we'll talk about what makes a company attractive in terms of purchasing a stock. We will talk about Northwoods by Daniel Mason. I have finished the book club book, and I would love to talk about it with you guys. And lastly, Brian Scalabrine, the White Mamba. No one's going to know who that is but me and a few other people that listen. He is a former Celtics player, and he's a trash talker, and he discusses what it means to be not a great professional athlete, what that means in terms of comparing himself to the average Joes and Janes of the athletic world. So, without further ado, welcome back. Let's jump into stocks. So, what do I look for? What's attractive to me? Well, companies with scale and stable revenues. Remember, there's no such thing as a surefire investment, but I'm drawn to companies, like I said before, possibly that maybe on this podcast. I like companies that pay dividends. They're essentially paying you to hold on to the stock. They usually pay quarterly. It could be something like 25 cents, $1.13 per share, and then you can sort of roll those over and buy more marginal shares from them, or that money can go into whatever you want it to. It's your money. So dividend companies are usually companies that have reliable profits because that fuels the payouts quarter after quarter. I like companies that have been around since Abe Lincoln. I like old companies that have been around forever and that you can see the products and appliances all over your home. So for example, Coca-Cola, top 5 global company, 130 years, 130 plus countries. Say what you want about the health benefits, not really benefits of soda. It's no Philip Morris, but Coca-Cola is one that I always recommend. I've had it for 10 years. Consolidated Edison, right? Thomas Edison. This is a utilities company. It is very expensive to create a utility. Therefore, although we all need energy, there's a competition scarcity. There's only a few major players in the utility company space. Consolidated Edison is one of the best. CVS, right? They're doing much better than their counterpart Walgreens, which is shuttering a bunch of stores. Pharmaceuticals, we all get sick. It's a good idea to have something in your portfolio that's a dividend payer that's in the healthcare industry, especially one where CVS sells everything from candy bars to greeting cards to photos, right? They have a ton of physical storefronts still. Genuine Parts Company. This is one of those companies that you just don't know it. This is Napa. This is a huge auto parts consortium that has, once again, storefronts. They sell to big companies. They sell to average people who need to get a new part to put in their vehicle, a new headlight, a new wiper blade, right? Napa, Genuine Parts has 69 straight years of increased dividends. Now, increasing is probably marginal. We're talking pennies. But if it was 13 cents after 69 straight years of growth, maybe you're looking at 81 cents a share quarterly in your bank, in your pocket, right? Gilead Sciences. They do virology. They do HIV, AIDS maintenance. They do oncology. Now, oncology is a less scary word for cancer drugs that are way too expensive. I'm not advocate. I don't like where we are healthcare wise, but in terms of portfolio building, Gilead Sciences is one to look at. And lastly, Mondelez. This is one where you open your pantry and you see Oreo, Ritz crackers, Sour Patch Kids. A lot of overseas business, right? They're in the business of making, I was going to say good food. It's tasty food. It's not good food. And also they acquire companies left and right to add to their portfolio. So those are just 6 companies that I wanted to highlight. Like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but I wanted to just give you some ideas about different parts of different sectors, dividend payers that maybe you want to do more research on. Okay, number 2 topic. And I guess my caveat is I have shares in at least 3 of those companies. Although I will not profit from anything you the consumers do. Northwoods, man, what a gorgeous book. This is a 2023 or 2024 national book runner-up. This was a big book, right? New York Times bestseller. This is Daniel Mason. This is 5th novel. It's location. This is a story about place. What is it? What does place mean? So we have a yellow house deep in the woods of Western Massachusetts, right? And the motley succession of occupants, humans, and otherwise who leave their marks on the property over the course of 4 centuries. So this is one of those books where, yes, it's going to be, there's 12 chapters. They roughly constitute different 12 months of the year, and they are wide and varying. We start off with a pair of young lovers who, casting off their Puritan yokes, abscond to their private Arcadia. And they come to this spot in the woods. There's no house at this point, but it's about location, about place, right? So Northwoods manages really impressively to focus on really small micro things, right? We know we have 2 people in the woods. And then macro, it's able to pull out and talk about trends and about conservationism and about the white ash borer beetle who's destroying trillions of trees, billions of trees, right? It's about succession, about the ephemerality of life. Mason's characters often meet violent ends. We have a pair of sisters who own this orchard that's nearby this yellow house, and they have this great, beautiful variant of apple that everyone loves called the Osgood. And unfortunately, one of the sisters with an axe kills her other sister. I won't go into too many details, right? And then their spirits kind of haunt the house. And then centuries later, you have a person who does like Ouija boards and is like a soothsayer and does an investigation of the supernatural and actually bumps up into one of these ghosts, right? So it's an extensive cast. They're all kind of weaved together. But there's great characters. Like I said, there's the apple-obsessed orchardist, guy who owns an orchard, right? And his 2 daughters. There's a painter who yearns for he's a homosexual in an age where that was not allowed, right? So he's yearning for this other male lover that writes books, and he illustrates the pictures, and they both have wives, and sort of a Brokeback Mountain kind of relationship, right? And we have a young black mother fleeing slavery and bounty hunters. She stays in the house for a bit. A schizophrenic whose mother corresponds with prison inmates while her son hallucinates about the house's former inhabitants. I can go on, but it's written with such elegance and beauty. Sometimes the book feels a little bit simple, but it's just gorgeous. I could pull out so many different quotes. There's a postdoctoral student who knows nothing of the different artists who have taken up residence in this house. Gosh, this stuff is just, it goes on and on and on. It reminds me of, it's got some David Henry Thoreau, it's got Nathaniel Hawthorne, Richard Powers' The Overstory, which if you have not read that, please add that to your must-read list. George Saunders, Lincoln in the Bardo, right? There's logs, fungus feathered like turkey, with the March dankness, with the bare trees, the mist, the mud like foldable slabs of potter's clay, right? So Daniel Mason is a beautiful writer, and I think he's in his element. I haven't read his other books, but he is really just, he really gets this book. He gets what it means to be in nature. He understands he understands that with great passing comes rebirth and newness. I think this is a remarkably good book. It is not for everybody. Sometimes it seems almost like free-form poetry. Like I said, the narratives are just these different occupants who bump up against this homestead over the course of 4 centuries. I really, really highly recommend this book. It is really just, I keep using the word gorgeous, but there's so many passages I could pull out that really just kind of stopped me. One of those NPR driveway moments where I was just rereading. So my review for Northwoods, read it. It's fantastic. I loved it. Okay, we're going to finish up with a completely unrelated story. So Brian Scalabrine is a 6'8" white dude, nicknamed White Mamba, obviously in reference to Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba. Brian Scalabrine is an NBA player. Fact. He played, I think, like 8 years with the Celtics. He averaged like 2 points, maybe a rebound, maybe half an assist. He was not a great NBA player. But I think the thing that's lost, and he's kind of talked about this, is he's often called like the worst NBA player of all time, right? It's kind of a badge that he wears kind of reluctantly. Occasionally he'll go on Twitter and there'll be this sort of feud where someone challenges him to a one-on-one. And this happened somewhat recently, and he won 11-0 because, as he says, I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. So it kind of just talks about this huge schism between professional athletes who have made it to the big time and everybody else. every rec basketball player who goes to the YMCA on a Sunday summer league and dominates. The truth is, you're not an NBA player. You would get trounced by even, quote-unquote, the worst NBA player. So Brian Scalabrine is kind of one of those guys who occasionally just gets onto the either ESPN or a radio talk show, or gets on Twitter. I guess it's called X now. To me, it's still Twitter. And he just kind of goes off saying, pump the brakes. Whatever bracket, whatever echelon you think you are in terms of athleticism, I am a poor NBA player, but I can still wipe the floor with you. So I think it's interesting because you always hear these when you're in the sports realm. You always hear the talking heads say, "Oh, the worst NFL team should take on Alabama." Alabama being a powerhouse college football team, and the NFL is comprised of the best of the college, and so it's not a healthy comparison, and it gets kind of old. But once again, Brian Scalabrine, not a good NBA player, but he's still an NBA player. He's closer to LeBron than you are to him. I just think of that quote all the time. This goes with everything in life, from chess to Fortnite. Whatever bracket you think you are in, you have reached the top of whatever you're in, the players you're playing, the games you're online. There is multitudes above you. Surely, it is very rare to be somebody who is the best. To be LeBron and Michael Jordan, you are looking down on waves of people with varying degrees of aptitude and abilities. So, once again, let us bow down to White Mamba, Brian Scalabrine. He understands athleticism. He will beat you. Despite him being a gangly, awkward-looking NBA player, he's still in the NBA. Okay, so we talked about Northwoods. We talked about Brian Scalabrine, and I mentioned a couple stocks to look into. Have a great weekend. No rest for the weary. I'll be back tomorrow for another great episode. Hit me up with some book recommendations. Since I've just finished a book, I have 2 more to start reading, but I always take more suggestions. Be above the line. Be kind. Take care.